Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining this afternoon's Cuppa Club with Tom Cooper, Roslyn, and Colin Grant from Glengarry Forest Cabins and Glengarry Community Woodland, who are all directors. My name is Paul Pizzala, and I'm an investment manager at Ethics, working with Tom and Community Share Scotland on their offer. So before we get started, there's just a little bit of housekeeping to do. And I'd like to let you know that Cuppa Club is recorded and made available to watch after the event, and we'll be sending that round to you all. To say that this is not financial advice, and should you need advice, please do speak to your financial advisor. The Cuppa Club usually runs for about 30 to 45 minutes, and it really is an excellent opportunity to meet and ask questions of the directors and hear about why Glengarry Forest Cabins is such an impactful organisation and, excuse me, how it aims to achieve its goals. So please do feel free to ask questions in the chat box, and we'll take those as we go along. So just a little bit about the offer before Tom, and Colin introduce themselves. The product on offer is to fund the construction of 5 eco cabins and an amenity block. Glengarry are raising a minimum of £160,000, which I'm pleased to say that they've already reached that target, with an optimal £250,000 to £330,000 in withdrawable shares and offering an indicative interest rate of 4%. So with all that in mind, I'm going to hand over to Ros, Tom and Colin to introduce themselves, and then we'll get into the Cuppa Club.
Hi folks, my name's Tom Cooper. I am the development manager for Glengarry Community Woodlands, and I'm also one of the co-founders for Glengarry Community Benefit Society.
Hi, my name is Ross. I've lived in this part of the world for 5 years, but would have liked to have lived here longer. And I've been volunteering at the Community Woodlands since I arrived, and joined the board of the Community Woodlands, Glengarry Community Woodlands, about a year and a half ago. And with Colin and Tom, we founded the Community Benefit Society in order to enable us to move forward with this share offer.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Colin Grant. I'm one of the founding members of the Community Benefit Society. I've been involved in the Glengarry Community Woodlands since its very inception back in 2014, and I'm looking forward to a successful opportunity here with the Glengarry Forest Cabins.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for the introductions. So, Tom, we're going to move into some questions now. And first question: can you give us some insight into community in Glengarry and what it's like to live there?
Yeah, so I've lived in Glengarry for nearly 8 years now. Glengarry is a Highland community in the northwest Highlands of Scotland. It's about a third of the way along the Great Glen. For those of you that know the area, the Great Glen kind of is a diagonal line across the kind of top third of Scotland. So going from Fort William to Inverness, it's about a third of the way along. I'm actually going to share my screen and show you the map that I have created. So here we are. The marker in the middle of the map there is for the village of Invergarry. Invergarry being the kind of population centre, if you like, for Glengarry. With about 380 permanent residents, it's quite a small population. It's quite a small number of people live there, but it's a very large area. Glengarry actually extends all the way from the west coast near the Isle of Skye here, all the way to Aberhalder in the east. which is kind of in the Great Glen. So it's a very large area, but a very small population, so very dispersed.
Brilliant. Thanks. Thank you. Thanks for that, Tom. Excellent. To get that kind of context of where you are, and how big the area is, and how few people there are. So I was wondering, can you tell us a little bit about the history of your organization and how it came about?
Yeah, absolutely. So to cut a long story short, in 2015, the community in Glengarry came together to buy a small woodland on the edge of the village. The woodland's about 75 acres, about just over 30 hectares. And it's right on the edge of the village of Invergarry. I actually got some photos to show you. So this is an aerial photo of the community woodland. The woodland is the area outlined in yellow, and we are literally just on the edge of the village, which is kind of to the east, over to the right of the woodland. It's really well positioned in that it actually, we're very lucky that it is so close to the village. It has a pavement leading out to it from the village, so it's easy for people to get here when we run clubs and events and things. It's easy for the school to get here. So we have been very fortunate in being able to get hold of this woodland. And the community were also very lucky that the woodland came with this building, which we call the, sorry, Ross, go on.
I was just going to say, Tom, and also this piece of woodland is actually on the A87, the road to the Isles, the main road to Skye. So we get a lot of visitors passing as well.
Absolutely. It's very well, because there's a lot of passing trade, and it's on two of the main tourist routes around the Highlands. So the community were very fortunate that when they bought the woodland, it came with this building. This is an old Forestry Commission regional depot building. It's actually quite run down. This photo was taken 4 years ago, and this is how it looks now. This photo was taken in September, I think. We renovated the building a couple of years ago. It's really, really important as a community hub. It's our office. That's the building that I'm speaking to you from right now, just behind that little ray of sunshine. It's also our workshop. There's a meeting room that we can use for board meetings and for education. It has a kitchen, an outside toilet, an inside toilet, and we've also built a couple of sheds around the back.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. So look, absolutely amazing location. Both sort of, locally in terms of being close to the village, but also in the broader aspect of being on a major artery for tourism, which is obviously, an important part of the business.
Yeah.
So, can you give us a bit more? Tell us a little bit about the challenges you're trying to address. Why the organisation exists, and what it is exactly that you're trying to achieve. I know you're trying to achieve a lot of different things, actually. So interested to hear more about that.
Yeah, so like many Highland communities, Glengarry has had its struggles, its issues with kind of a changing economy over the last couple of decades. Traditional employers in the area, such as the Forestry Commission and the Hydroelectric Board, which is now SSE, used to have a very big presence in the area. In fact, the community woodland itself was owned by the Forestry Commission, and the depot building that we occupy used to host, a good sort of 60, 70 employees back in the day. These employers really underpinned the community, were really part of the fabric of the community. And as they have gradually withdrawn, it's kind of left a void, which has been mainly filled by tourism. Now, tourism has been very, very successful and very popular in our area, but it brings with it many challenges. It has the result of the area's kind of popularity is that there's a huge pressure on the limited housing stock in the area, where the cost of houses is completely out of proportion to the average local salary. And of course, the tourist season is very seasonal. In the summer, the area is very busy, and people struggle to keep up with the demand. And in the winter, it can be very quiet. Jobs are very seasonal. So tourism brings with it many challenges, but it also brings with it many opportunities, which is kind of what we're here to talk about today. I'll come on to that in a minute.
Brilliant, brilliant. Ross or Colin, I'm just wondering if you want to chip in anything at this point.
Well, I could add, yeah, certainly I could add that the tourism is indeed a growing thing. I have my own small campsite that I run nearby. That's actually been in our family for generations. So we've seen an increase in the number of tourists, and really, as Tom says, the pressures for accommodation in the summertime are particularly high. So yeah, it's an itch that's needing scratching for sure.
And I think I would like to add that the important thing about the Glengarry Forest Cabins is that it's a slightly different offering from all the other accommodation offers in the area. And that was one of the important things that we were keen to ensure, that we're adding to the opportunities and not in any way competing with the local community and what they already offer, but offering something very different. And of course, in keeping with the ethical and the eco credentials of a community woodland, we wanted to do something that was very much an eco cabin rather than your traditional self-catering cabins.
Brilliant. Thanks for the detail, Colin and Ross, and really interesting to hear. Colin has direct tourism experience, so he's kind of being a beneficiary of it, and obviously sort of bringing that experience to Glengarry Forest Cabins too. And interesting to hear from Ross how you're differentiating yourselves in the market in terms of offering something different from tourists, so something additional whilst not taken away. Very interested to come into some of the points that you've started to explain to us around the impacts. You're talking about housing, creating jobs, seasonality, so lots of challenges and opportunities, as Tom said. How will the business specifically start to address some of those issues that you're trying to solve?
Yeah, I'll take that one, Paul. So I'll just kind of go back one step and tell you a little bit about what we do as an organization. So basically, we are a development trust. We manage land to address local needs. That's our kind of strapline, if you like, if we had one. And we do that in a number of ways. We run a calendar of social events. We run a forest school club during the school holidays. We have 2 trained forest school leaders on the staff team. We run weekend clubs for older children, where kids get the chance to do a John Muir Award, and the kind of content of the clubs feeds into the curriculum. We run sort of community-wide social events where Halloween and Easter events in the woods, which are really important for community cohesion and really important for kind of socializing. It's a particularly important thing for a community like ours, where the distance to travel to the nearest town is 55-mile round trip at least. So it's a very high cost as well. So we kind of provide a range of sort of functions for the community. We also run a firewood business. This is one of my favorite photos, one of my favorite work toys. The firewood business has been really, really important, especially in these last few months, in providing a sustainable and affordable fuel source for the community. And it also kind of underpins our management of the woodland. It's been really important. And finally, one of our sort of higher profile projects is a response to the housing crisis. We recently entered into a partnership with the Inverness-based charity called the Communities Housing Trust to establish some woodland crofts and affordable homes a few miles up the glen from where we're based. And that is quite a large project that will eventually see the establishment of 6 woodland crofts and 4 affordable homes that will be owned and managed by the community. One of the things I want to say, Paul, is it's really important for when communities own land, it's really important for development trusts like ourselves to be sustainable. And this means being financially sustainable. Like many organizations of like ourselves, we have used grants to get projects off the ground. And grants have been great, but they're not a long-term funding solution. What we really need is a sustainable income, and that is really what we are here to talk about.
Brilliant, excellent. So that's the perfect jumping off point to telling us about how the cabin business will benefit the community, because we've talked about a lot of these additional things that you're bringing to your community, but we're really here to talk about raising funds for the cabins and building the cabins today. So really interested to hear more about that.
Okay. So basically there's kind of a 3-pronged approach to management of the community woodland. It needs to deliver socially, environmentally, and economically for the community. As some of you will know, those are the 3 pillars of sustainability. I think I've hopefully kind of covered the social aspect and the environmental aspect. Our long-term management aims for the woodland include restoring ancient woodland habitat. The whole of the community woodland is what's known as a plantation on ancient woodland. It's one of these sites that was once probably quite an incredible oak birch woodland, but was all felled in the 1950s and planted with non-native conifers. So our approach to managing the woodland is what you call a multi-purpose management approach, where management delivers more than one outcome, not just one outcome. And to achieve this, we are setting up Glengarry Forest Cabins, and there's our new logo, which I hope you can all see. Now, I've been working on Glengarry Forest Cabins for quite a while. We started pre-COVID. The objective has always been fairly clear: set up a business in the woodland that makes the most of its attractive kind of scenic qualities and does not compromise any ecological value, any habitat in the woodland itself, or the community's use of the woodland. And a business that will generate revenue to sustain the core activities of our organization, so that we can not only continue our restoration and management of the woodland and all the other work we do, the forest school, etc., but also so we can continue our work elsewhere in the community, the housing and the other development work that the community want us to work on. So it's about having control of our own finances instead of being reliant on short-term grants, which, to be honest, give you kind of no security. I'll talk you through a little bit about the kind of design process, and then I'll pause to see if my colleagues want to add anything or take any questions. So throughout 2019, we worked with architects and designers to come up with a site plan for 8 wooden off-grid cabins in the woodland that would be situated kind of right in the heart of the woodland, kind of away from the road and away from any housing. Now, we're removing non-native conifers as part of our restoration and part of our management of the woodland. So we thought, okay, why not mill these trees and convert them into cabins that we want for our business? And that's what we're doing. So we chose to work with Northwoods Construction, Northwoods Construction, who are a family-run business based a couple of hours north of us, just near Ullapool. It was set up by Bernard Planteros, who's literally wrote the book on cabin design in Scotland. He wrote the design manual for the Scottish Government's Guide to Hutting, which is a design manual for woodland managers who want to build wooden structures in their woodland. Bernard is an ecologist and a timber building expert, and he really understands what we are trying to achieve. He understands the bigger picture. So we were really, really pleased to be able to work with Bernard. And Northwoods Construction have designed a fairly modern looking cabin for us. I've got some pictures here.
Brilliant. I do have one
Of course,
question from the audience, actually, Tom, if
Go
I can
on.
just interject. So just going to read it out to you, if I may. So Alan says, I do like the design aspects of these cabins, not the usual self-catering accommodations, but more like glamping, tailored for the Highland climate. However, I am concerned that you mentioned they are just 2 people, so no room for 1 or 2 children, who I would have thought would have been keen to stay here.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you. And that's one that's come up quite a few times recently. So you're right. They are cabins that are designed for 2 people. They will have space for a young child, a baby or a toddler, and there will be cots available. But they're not really designed for small families, and there's a few reasons for that. Firstly, we did initially look at designs for larger cabins that would be, family size, but they were just too expensive. They were almost the cost of a small house. We've also done a bit of market research on this and spoken to some other cabin businesses across the Highlands, and we find that the family market for this type of accommodation actually isn't that strong. While there are families with young kids that want to stay in these types of units, most young families tend to stay in kind of self-catering houses. So given the sort of extra cost of a family cabin, we didn't think at this stage it was justifiable to kind of invest that much money in building them. However, what I would say is this is only the first phase. We will be coming back to do a second phase, and once we've run the business for a while and kind of tested the market and gathered feedback from our guests, we will certainly look at building more cabin, bringing the number up to 8 and accommodating that other part of the market. I hope that answers the question.
That's a great answer, brilliant answer, and it just goes to show the in-depth market research that you've done to come up with the right product, if I may say so. But sorry, Roz, you go.
I was going to say, I think another point to add is that one of the things that Tom highlighted is the seasonality of a lot of hospitality employment. And seasonality often means you're tied to the school holidays and when the kids can come with you. Well, aiming more for this market, the market that we're aiming to reach at, they go at other times of the year. Myself, for example, I've just been up to Sutherland, my husband and I, 2 of us, no kids involved, because we choose to go when there are when the school holidays are not on. So therefore, having these kinds of cabins for just mainly for couples or couples with a small child or 2 small children, that enables us to extend the season much more effectively.
Yeah.
Great, brilliant, great answer. Really, really, really good answer. Thanks so much for that. And I just wanted to ask actually about heating. How do you heat the cabins?
Yeah, good question. So every cabin will have a wood burning stove. We just look at these. So we're probably going to have a 3.5 kilowatt British made wood burning stove in the cabin. And so they'll all be heated with firewood. Wood is one fuel that we are not short of here. All of our management of the woodland produces a huge amount of surplus wood. So that's how they'll be heated.
Super, thanks, Tom. Sorry, I didn't want to stop you in your tracks. I think you may have a few more sort of points to make. So
yeah,
carry on.
I'll go on. Yeah. So a couple of things I wanted to say was that so Northwoods have designed these cabins for us. They're quite modern looking. There's quite a lot of glass in them, you'll see. But all of the external timber, all of the decking, the cladding, the ground chassis, and all the non-stress graded timbers in these cabins will come from trees from our own woodland. In fact, there'll be trees from nearby the cabin site itself. And that is one of the great things that we have managed to achieve through working with Northwoods, as opposed to, say, buying one of these pods that you see fairly commonly when you're in the Highlands. I want to say something about the impact of the cabins on the woodland. So there's been a lot of consideration put into this. The cabins, you don't get planning permission to build in woodlands. In fact, it's very, very difficult. Our cabins are not permanent structures in the woodland. They will be positioned on stilts, so they'll be off the ground. There's no excavation and pouring of a concrete slab that you build on in the sort of conventional building way. These are on 4 or 6 kind of concrete stilts. So they're off the ground. There's minimal interference with the forest floor, and they're situated in quite an open area of the community woodland in Scots pine, which is quite an open grown tree with stunning views up the glen towards our local mountain. It's just under the size of a Munro called Bentee. I'm going to say a little bit about the other sort of facilities in the cabins, because some of you hopefully have picked up that they are off-grid. Okay, so these are off-grid cabins heated with wood. They will have a very simple wiring system. Okay, we are looking at putting photovoltaic panels on the roof of the cabin, or they may need to go probably elsewhere in the woodland where they won't get any shade. And now these will support a simple wiring system for USB chargers and LED lighting. So there will be basic electricity in the cabins. There won't be enough to boil a kettle or anything, but you will be, of course, able to boil your kettle on the wood burning stove anyway. And there will be a compost loo outside each cabin. But we have chosen what we think of anyway as the posh design of compost loo. It's it's the Natsol, which is a Welsh-based company actually. Really, really good quality compost loos. I'm going to go straight on and talk about something else, because I think it's really important that I get a couple of other points in about the guest experience. Now, guests, although the cabins are off-grid, guests are not expected to go without anything during our stay with us. Okay, and this is a really important point, because an off-grid cabin with a compost loo may not be everyone's cup of tea. At the entrance to the woodland, we are going to build the amenity building. Okay, this will house showers, hot water, kitchen, communal lounge, Wi-Fi, charging points, refrigeration. It'll all be there. So guests are not going to go without anything when they come to stay with us. And the kind of overall concept of the business is that the guests arrive, they leave their cars at the entrance of the woodland in the car park where the amenity building is, and then they walk the sort of 300-400 meters into the woodland to their cabins.
Brilliant. Sorry, sorry, Tom, are you still there?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. No, that's you're painting a really, really fantastic picture, actually, and that's exactly what whilst you were describing the view to the glen, I was picturing myself sort of there in a very happy place, and I was glad to hear that there was an amenity block too, because that's just made the experience a whole lot better.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, we're sort of coming up to the 30-minute mark, and and it's very, very clear to me that you've done a tremendous amount of work in the community. A lot of thought has gone into picking the right partners, getting the design right, understanding your niche in the market, having the right position for tourists. So could you, and you talked about financial sustainability. Do you think you could talk a little bit about the economics of the project and how that works? I'm sure, people would be interested to understand how that all wraps up into the numbers.
Yeah, so we've done a considerable amount of financial modeling in the preparation for this share offer and in our development of the business, and I mean a considerable amount.
Yes.
And we have been very conservative in our estimates. Okay, so one of the most important things we've had to kind of make an educated guess, or an informed kind of guess at, is the occupancy rate that we expect to get across the season that will be open, which is roughly April through to October, November. And then look at our nightly rate. And it's those two figures that really set the tone for the whole kind of economics of the project, if you like. We have been very, very conservative with our estimates. Colin, who runs local business, kind of attest to this. We've set the occupancy rates at very sort of conservative levels, and I think we've only increased the occupancy rate after the second or third year. And the nightly rate as well, which we've set at £78 per cabin per night, is really, to be honest, very, very cheap. In reality, once the business is open, we expect to get much better occupancy, and we expect to build up, you know, a kind of a following, if you like, once we're established. And of course, once a business starts out, prices generally do stay low, but once we're established and we're trading, we will put those prices up. The model has been set to pay for staff. It will pay for the staff in the development trust, the existing staff members, but it will also support new staff positions. And from, I think, the second year, we have modelled for a forest cabin manager to start work, and there will also be a cabin assistant to help with changeovers. All of the modelling has been based on changing over every cabin once a day. So we're not going to set any limits. You'll often find when you book a self-catering, you can only check in on a Saturday or something. We're not going to do that. When you come and stay with us, you can check in any day of the week. We're not going to place any limits, certainly not at the beginning.
So I've got a question on the pricing model from Catherine, and she's asking, what has the pricing model been benchmarked against?
Yeah, good question. So it's been benchmarked against what's available locally. So we were very keen that we were much cheaper than a hotel room, or than a comparable size kind of self-catering house. But then we also looked at other similar businesses across the country. We've been in touch with a very successful, fairly similar business near Comrie in Perthshire, and in Aviemore, and across the country, all of which have been very supportive and helpful in sharing their expertise. So we've kind of tried to go in under those businesses, not for any other reason other than just to make sure that our modelling is right.
Yeah, got it. Okay, so you sort of had a good look around at alternatives and direct competitors to find the right price point to get you started. And I also know that you've done a lot of work on getting yourselves onto the right types of platforms in order to get things moving. Just got another question from John, who says, is there a water supply in each cabin needed for washing and hygiene, he says?
Yeah, very good question, John. So water supply for each cabin will be tanked. Okay, so it'll be a tank of water that we will recharge when there's a changeover. We did look at putting water up to the cabin site, but it was just cost prohibitive. Longer term, I think we will look at perhaps drilling a borehole up there and having our own sustainable, our own being self-sufficient with water. But certainly in the initial stages, water will be tanked and it will be carried up there by the staff who do the changeovers. And it'll really just be for kind of washing hands. We expect most of the cooking and the everything to be done in the amenity building at the bottom.
Brilliant. And so Catherine's carrying on the. So first thing in the morning, I want a hot coffee. What do I do?
You stoke up the fire and you put your coffee pot on top of the stove. So the stoves are there. We're specifically buying the stove that has a hot plate on the top. So there'll be you can do simple cooking. You can boil a kettle, percolate some coffee, warm some baked beans, or boil an egg or something. You won't be able to cook a fancy 3-course meal up there, but you can do basic cooking, make yourself tea and coffee in the cabin. The only thing is you will have to light a fire first.
Or porridge if you're in Scotland.
Absolutely, indeed. And I think what I see in the, there's an awful lot of it's a huge amount of quality that's gone into the design and the build of the cabins that just make, not only are you in the woods, you're in these beautiful cabins, and I'm just sort of interested to hear what sort of experience you want your guests to have, and how that's so valuable to them and to yourselves, of course, in terms of creating that experience for them. Maybe Colin, that's something you'd be able to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. The experience that we're aiming to allow guests to have is to have an immersion in nature and the sort of enjoy the wildlife and the beauty of the locality. The views, as you say, Paul, are stunning, really amazing. I think it's one of the most scenic parts of the whole of the area of Glengarry. It's also being immersed in the woodland, so walking into the cabins gets you away from the road, away from sort of busyness, allows you to switch off and slow down and take a sort of connection with nature. That's really the experience we're aiming at, I think.
Brilliant. So definitely for nature lovers and people who want to. Ros.
I was just saying, Colin will remember we talked long and hard about a strapline for the Glengarry Forest Cabins, and I loved it. In the end, we came up with unplug and reconnect. And you unplug with what you want, and you reconnect with what you want. Beautiful.
Sounds like you've been in the marketing game, Ros. That's unplug and reconnect. Beautiful.
It wasn't me who thought of that. Someone else thought of it.
that is fantastic. Alistair is asking, when do you expect to be open for pre-booking? So we'll take a couple of last questions, and then we'll start to come towards the end. So, question: when do you expect to be open for pre-bookings?
That's a very good question. We hope to be open in the 2023 season at some point. Some of you may be aware there's a new licensing that's come in for accommodation of this kind in Highlands, and that's something that we are going to have to comply with, which isn't going to be that difficult, but there is potential for there to be a slight delay with that. But we expect to be open during the 2023 season, certainly by August.
Thanks for that, Tom. There are a couple of questions remaining. Things kind of little admin around. Do I bring my own cutlery and food? I mean, I suppose that's quite an important one, isn't it? Especially food.
Definitely bring your own food, yes, but you won't need cutlery. That's right. I mean, that's a good point. And what we're looking at doing is, when you book to stay here, you will receive instructions that will set out all of this type of information. We haven't really developed this sort of material yet, but all of this stuff will be made absolutely clear. But yeah, you won't need cutlery or plates, but please do bring your food.
Brilliant.
Or better still, in order to support the local community, there's 1 or 2 eateries very close, in fact, walking distance, that I'm sure people would want to patronize occasionally.
Indeed.
Believe it or not, there's an excellent curry house right next to the community woodland.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. I love it. So thank you so much, Tom, Ros and Colin for walking us through and going into detail on Glengarry Forest Cabins. Really good to kind of get your a tangible feel for who you are and the organisation. That's been really helpful. I suppose I just wanted to finish off and say that you've got off to a brilliant start. The offer is actually closing on the 19th of December, so we're not too far away, and we're sort of over the minimum, around the £182,000 level in terms of reaching the 250,000. So I know you're pleased with where you are, but absolutely want to get to the 250,000. So really want to kind of encourage people to take a look. And wouldn't it be marvelous if we got to the stretch goal of 330,000, and that would really speed the development along. And I'm itching to come up and visit you and see what it's all about. It sounds absolutely fantastic. And just sort of before we do the outros, really a summary and a call to action from all three of you to finally get people motivated to do something.
Shall I start on this one then, guys? Yeah. We really want to appeal to everybody, both locals and people further away. And a lot of people, I think Tom has been saying that we've had quite a lot of interest from people who already know the area and want to support us in our endeavour to develop opportunities for employment and all the other things that the Development Trust wants to try to achieve. But also, I think it's great that people, as you yourself said, Paul, it's great that people think they will have a small stake in the Highlands, and they'll feel they're coming home if they want to come and stay with us, if they have invested. So I would say, please, whatever you can afford, I've put quite a lot in because I really believe in this. Whatever you can afford, please invest in Glengarry Forest Cabins.
Brilliant, thanks, Ros. And Colin, over to you.
Yeah, I'll echo just what Ross is saying there. We think it's such a good opportunity, and that once people do visit us, they will be really motivated to come back and return. There's so much to do in the area. The scenery is amazing. The walks and cycle paths and facility, there's just so much to do if you like nature and explore the Highlands of Scotland. It's a great opportunity to make that available and take advantage of it.
Brilliant, thanks Colin. And finally, Tom, over to you.
Yeah, I just would like to say, please help us get to our optimum targets. Even though as an investor you are investing in a cabin business, you are supporting a wide range of work: economic development, social development, forest school and things like that, and environmental improvement and habitat improvement. So please help us get to our target and buy shares today.
Brilliant, thank you so much for that, Tom. And finally, it remains for me to say thank you to Tom, Ross and Colin, and also thank you to the audience for taking part, because of course it doesn't happen without you. As I mentioned earlier, the offer is open to the 19th of December and we'll be sending updates, so I encourage you to go and take a look at the website. So thanks once again for your time, and it just remains for Tom, Ross and Colin to say goodbye.
I'll just jump in and say, if there's any questions that haven't been answered, my email address is on our share offer documents. Please feel free to get in touch with me directly and I will answer any questions you have. Thanks for listening, everyone. Goodbye.
Thanks for all the suggestions about how to market it that have come up in the chat.
Yeah, thank you. There have been some really good little points raised in the chat that I think we can get value of. So yeah, thank you everyone, and yeah, please do think of investing.
Brilliant. Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.